There have been a number of people who have said part of the problem with quote unquote police reform is that police unions might be in the way. We'll talk about one police union, if you will, that is trying to protect its members, and there may be some members of the public who think they don't need to be protected.
That's right. In the state of New Jersey, the police union is actually suing the attorney general over there, saying, look, you probably shouldn't release the names of the officers who have been disciplined for the past 20 years. And like you said, police unions are there to protect the police officers.
What's the public policy argument in favor of release, and what's the counter? What is the union saying is a justifiable reason to keep that information confidential?
Well, I would counter by saying through the Freedom of Information Act, you can get a police officer's personnel file. You just have to go through certain protocols and procedures in order to get it. And having a blast where their names are out there, never underestimate teenagers with nothing else to do. They could definitely use that information and make a person's life miserable. A good way to release it is basically saying, look, we want to end systematic racism, and this is just one of the many things that we can do.
And it's a very fair point that for a variety of reasons, most of us, our information is public, where we live, et cetera. And you could go find it from various databases. But if you are a judge, if you're a peace officer, you often can go and have that information, at least in Iowa, kept confidential because there is the fear of retaliation and retribution. And so that is a very fair thing. Even when it is public, it's very different to have it, as you say, just in a blast that's out there in front of everybody, very easily obtained.
And even if you go out of your way to hide where you live, people are still going to find out. We live in the information age, so it's only a matter of time. But at the end of the day, I think that they're going to strike a happy medium. Maybe not go back 20 years, but maybe give the police officer some notice. Hey, and if you are disciplined in the future, then that might be problematic. I mean, as a lawyer, I knew signing up that if I were disciplined, it would be very public, which is why I make the medium bucks. And I think police officers should have that choice.
And again, it's a matter of the information may be available, but again, there's a difference between having to go aggressively seek it and having it just show up on your phone along with the coordinates with MapQuest or whatever to go find an officer's house.
Exactly. I mean, it's not that hard to find somebody's number and potentially harass them. And whenever it's displayed on something like TikTok or Twitter, where it's very public and it gets in the hands of tens of thousands of teenagers with what I said, nothing better to do because we are undergoing this COVID thing.
This is a story that keeps changing because of different lawsuits and different judges and different courts. And so by the time we get done with this conversation in 5 minutes, it may have changed again. But let's talk about who Mary Trump is, what she's trying to do, and why people are stopping her.
Mary Trump. You know, I love it whenever families air out their dirty laundry in public, especially whenever it comes to talking about wire hangers. So she is the niece of Donald Trump, and she wrote a book. I think the title is very telling, like basically how we made the most dangerous man in the world. But at the end of the day, the New York State Supreme Court said you cannot release this book. However, 30,000 copies have already been printed. That cat is out of the bag.
It's very similar to the John Bolton situation. I don't think anyone is claiming that Mary Trump, the president's niece, has any information that's going to jeopardize national security. But by the time we all know there's a book, not only is the book, to your point, in warehouses, but copies have already been given to media people and other reviewers. And so it's, again, use whatever analogy you like. Horse is out of the barn, cat is out of the bag. It in essence becomes impossible to preemptively stop dissemination of the information.
Exactly. And even the most dysfunctional families get freedom of speech. She signed a non-disclosure agreement relating to a will. Maybe that will keep some parts of the book out, maybe not. But at the end of the day, I have enough problems of my own. I don't really want to read about somebody else's.
Especially someone who appears to be of privilege. And I think that is the fundamental point. If you wanted to write a book about your family, if you don't have a non-disclosure agreement, you can go ahead. But she specifically signed off on an agreement in exchange for which she received payments under a will. So I suppose what's the other side? She would say, well, fine, I'll give that money back. I mean, that doesn't seem to be acceptable.
No, in this book, I mean, it's just more money in a Trump's pocket at the end of the day.
Because, again, if you are anti-Trump, well, you already know all of this, or you can presume it. It's not going to change your mind. If you're pro-Trump, once again, you already have heard so many bad things. I'm not sure what would be in the book, wire hanger references notwithstanding. I'm not sure what would be in the book that's going to change anybody's mind other than just here's poor niece Mary trying to get her 15 minutes.
Exactly. And I don't think it's going to be more entertaining than Mommy Dearest. I just don't.